Marvel Studios is reportedly in like the ultimate panic mode with the Russo brothers, to the point where Marvel Studios head Kevin Feige is going to micromanage and be more hands-on than ever before. And honestly, looking at the track record that the Russo brothers have had and Marvel Studios' own track record with him giving up some of that strict overlook everything, this is probably the best case scenario. So before we get into this, let's make one thing very clear here, and that's the fact that we've sort of known that Kevin Feige is such a hardcore fan of Marvel, and that he loves these characters and this universe that Marvel created in the comics so much that he was instrumental and micromanaged almost everything related to all these projects. You know, you go all the way back to the pre-production of Iron Man 1. And you even look at some of the stuff he was doing when he was just a low-level, almost intern during the Fox production of X-Men 1 and 2 and Spider-Man 1 and 2 and the first Fantastic Four. He would try to push them to do things a specific way, more comic book-like, because he believed it could work, and they never bought into it. So when he went out there and funded Marvel Studios with loans that he took out and grants and, you know, making partnerships, he wanted to micromanage everything the way that he thought and knew was going to be the best. Now, for better or for worse, this resulted in the MCU. If you love the MCU, especially, you know, when it was really being looked at as a joke, Phase 1. And Phase 1 is my favorite MCU phase. You know, it has problems, but it's him at the center of it that pulled everybody back. You know, you look at Captain America, the first Avenger, and the first Thor film, he was working with little money, but they were able to rein everybody back working on it and put out what they thought was good first films. And I like pretty much all of Phase 1. I'm not going to lie to you. I enjoy all the films. And obviously, the exception being Captain America, the First Avenger, being my absolutely favorite MCU film. Phase 2, we saw what was going on. Phase 3, and then we got to Phase 4 and 5, right? And you see that once Kevin Feige stopped being micromanaged, you see that things start to fall apart. Because instead of working on 2 productions a year, or maybe 3 tops, like they were in the previous phases, Kevin Feige suddenly had to be involved with roughly 6 productions a year. And he couldn't. And some of these suffered, and some of these were problematic and contradictory and didn't exactly line up with various things from one project to another. Like, still, the events of Secret Invasion barely have anything to do with the Marvels, despite the fact that they're clearly connected. And you can see this because he wasn't hands-on as much as he should have been for Secret Invasion, and he was on the Marvels. Same thing with Miss Marvel. He was very hands-on that, but other things suffered during that time. So it's clearly a problem. So now we got the recent report that I already covered, that the Russo brothers are kind of being looked at as the safe go-to, yes, but also they're also a problem. You know, they got their own production company. It's now involved. The Russo brothers like a certain amount of freedom that they're afforded, and we know this from their work in the MCU. But them leaving the MCU, having multiple misses, and then coming back and getting their studio involved means that they probably got a little bit more pull. And now we're hearing that despite the pull that they have and what they're going to be doing, the next 2 Avengers films, Kevin Feige is going to be staring them down like a hawk. And this, again, makes sense to me. You got to think about the bigger picture here from Kevin's point of view. If this doesn't work, if Doctor Doom, being played by Robert Downey Jr., doesn't stick the landing, if it's somehow botched in Avengers Doomsday, Secret Wars has the ultimate uphill battle. And you got to think from Kevin's point of view. Robert Downey Jr. returns to do his probably final stint in the MCU. And suddenly, all the goodwill and how we wrote out Iron Man with a heroic death is sort of undone by bringing that same actor back to just go, yes, but what if Iron Man was evil? Like, that's already lazy and why a lot of people have criticisms, and I don't blame anybody, and I don't blame Kevin. I don't blame the Russo brothers. I don't blame everybody because, as I've been saying since Robert Downey Jr. was announced to be Doctor Doom, this is a desperation mode. The Russo brothers are a desperation move. Everything in relation to these next two films is desperation. They see DC rising in the back. They know that if DC delivers a first good film, people might start to pivot. And make no mistake about it, two franchises doing the same thing, aka caper stuff, cannot really coexist and continue to deliver the same box office results. It's just not gonna happen. It's not infinite growth. You can't sustain that. It's not possible. The idea of this capitalistic world and, well, once we launch Disney Plus, we're only going to gain 25 million subscribers a year infinitely is not true. It never was. Netflix has a ceiling. Everybody has a ceiling, right? Like, it's not going to grow past that ceiling. Video game consoles peaked at around 160 million for the PS2 and now the Switch catching up to it. And that's it. We're never going to break that ceiling with another game console. It's limited. So you're looking now at two franchises battling one another, and people's wallets are going to be what dictates which one wins. And Marvel needs to make sure everything is firing off on every single cylinder repeatedly. And Kevin really, putting his foot down and saying, okay, I'm going to be on hand. I'm going to be overlooking everything. I'm going to be on set. We're going to make sure we're doing this right. To me, makes sense. Because if Doomsday comes out and it's subpar, this hurts Secret Wars. If Secret Wars is anything less than... okay, let me rephrase that. If Secret Wars isn't better than Endgame, that's a problem. This is going to be the ultimate celebration of everything. It needs to be big. Everybody knows. And as we keep hearing, Kevin Feige might actually be done with the MCU after Secret Wars. He probably wants to leave this thing off that he's been almost with for 30 years on a good note and walk away and give it to somebody else. More than likely Brad Winderbaum, while somebody else takes his position. You got to think about the impact he needs to have on the next 3 years worth of productions to leave it in a good place. If it's micromanaging the old way and not like the way that they did it the last 5 years because of various circumstances, it's exactly what needs to happen. Thank you for checking out that video, and thank you for your continued support. Feel free to like, share, subscribe, do whatever you will, and if you're so inclined and would like some additional content from us, which includes unfiltered content and bonus discussions, we do offer exclusively in our member section. We hope to see you there. So thank you for watching, and have a good one.